We are back after the international break and game week 4 is upon us. Some of you might have your wildcard active, but if you don't, watch this video till the end and decide whether you need to use it or not. Also, comment below with your current team whether you have an active wildcard or not. Let's see what lineup you're going with and let's have an open discussion about it in the comment section like we did last week. So let's get to it. Who should you have in your team for game week 4? I have two teams I want to focus on to begin with, Manchester United and Liverpool. As I said last week, we need players from Manchester United right now. If you don't have them, you will slip down the rankings. The first player I would focus on is Mkhitaryan. If you have Paul Pogba in your team, maybe you don't need Mkhitaryan, but if you don't have Paul Pogba or Mkhitaryan in your team, you need one of those two. And you need them right now because this is the time you cannot afford to slip further down in the rankings. And as they're performing, you need to have them in your team. And another player from Manchester United, Romelu Lukaku, even though he didn't play well last week, apparently, he's still a good option to have it up front. Don't worry about Ibrahimovic coming back to Man United. It's too early to sign him. Focus on Lukaku for now. So last week I said you should also have a Man United defender. I'm gonna name a few this time. Eric Bailly is the one everyone is focusing on. He's 6.1 million. If you don't have enough funds, you can also look at Phil Jones. Now here's where we need to talk about the wild card. If you have activated your wild card already, consider having all three in your team. One from Mkhitaryan or Pogba, Romelu Lukaku, and one of the defenders. If you have David De Gea, don't worry about having a defender, it's alright. If you don't have a goalkeeper, David De Gea from Man United, it's a good idea to consider having Eric Bailly or Phil Jones in your team. Now if you don't have your wildcard active, again, wait till the end of the video and see if you really need to activate it. So the next team is Liverpool. Mane or Salah in the midfield. If you have one, you don't need the other. I don't recommend having both. If you have neither, that's a difficult one to pick then. I mean, Mane seems like he starts more often than Salah, but you know, it's up to you. Which one do you feel? Which one does your gut instinct tell you to buy? You know, just go with one of the two. But if you have one of those two, just stick to it. Right now, I do not think it's absolutely necessary to have Firmino in your team. But again, if you have your wildcard active, it's a good option. But not worth taking a -4 hit if you don't have a wildcard active. I do not recommend having a Liverpool defender at this point. For defenders, look at Huddersfield. They got 3 clean sheets in 3 games and they have decent fixtures ahead at least in September. Also, look at West Bromwich Albion. They have decent fixtures in September and you can pick one of their defenders if you don't have their goalkeeper in your team already. I think it is time to talk about the wildcard again. All the players I have mentioned so far must be considered for your wildcard team. In addition, you can also look at Eriksen or Ali from Spurs for the midfield. Alonso from Chelsea in the defense. He is very expensive defender, but like I said last week, if he's scoring goals, you cannot ignore him at this point. Now regarding Kevin De Bruyne and Harry Kane. So first of all, Kevin De Bruyne, it is probably a good time to remove him. He is a good player, don't get me wrong, but in fantasy football you need points. And he played in a really deep role against Bournemouth last week, which isn't a good sign considering we need to get points out of him. So maybe remove him for a Man United defender or Man United midfielder or a Liverpool midfielder. If you have all three, well, I would like to have a look at your team, how you managed to get all those in your team. But yeah, we probably won't have De Bruyne, Mkhitaryan, Pogba, Salah and Mane in your midfield. So, you know, have one from Liverpool, one from Man United, and get rid of Kevin De Bruyne. If you have a wildcard active, you can use those funds ahead in strikers or defenders wherever you feel necessary. Harry Kane. Now, I hate myself for saying this, but I would still keep him for another week. Again, not if you still don't have Lukaku. If you'd have Lukaku in your team, it's fine. You can remove Harry Kane if you want. It's very important. If you don't have Lukaku in your team and you have Harry Kane, I think I would prioritize having Lukaku over Kane at this point. But then again, you know, it's just having Kane at the right time. You know, he might just come and score 2 goals this week. You never know. And if you have him, that's how you push up the rankings. That's the thing. That's the trick I used every season. Being patient with at least 1 or 2 players and having them when everybody else has removed him. I try to be patient with De Bruyne, but I think it's gone too far just because of the way he's playing. If you look at Harry Kane, the way he's playing, you know he's close to scoring goals. He takes so many shots, he hits the bar, he is very close. Kevin De Bruyne, on the other hand, plays deep. He's not getting many chances. It's not a wise move to have him in your team at this point. He might score this week, you never know. This is how FPL works, but I wouldn't have any regrets if I had removed him. Now, you might be tempted to get Morata in your team, and it is a reasonable option. But again, if you don't have a wildcard active, do not take a -4 hit for that. The reason I stress upon not taking a -4 hit is, first of all, who are you going to remove to get Morata? You're assuming that the player you're going to remove is definitely not going to score. If you have a player that's injured or is suspended, then maybe it makes sense. But if your player is set to start, that means he's guaranteed 1 or 2 points, plus a chance of scoring a goal. To remove him for a -4 hit, even if Morata scores a goal, the maximum points he can get is 2, because 6 minus 4 is 2. So it doesn't make sense to me. But if you already have a decent midfield, you have decent defenders, and your striker is someone who doesn't start, and you have 1 free transfer, go for it. You know, it is a good option. And Morata is something. Morata will push your rankings up if he scores, because I don't think many teams have signed him yet. So yeah, might consider him. Now, there's another question that might arise out of it. Should I remove Harry Kane and get Morata? Now, you see that these are the trick questions that I don't like to answer at this point. Personally, if I had a free transfer, I would prefer removing De Bruyne. If I don't have De Bruyne in my team and I have Harry Kane, I would keep Harry Kane. I would keep Harry Kane for 1 more week. It's just that moment when he scores when no one has him. You know, it just pushes your ranking up. So let's move on to the captain picks. Very quickly, I'll name 3 players which I think are decent options. Before the captain pick, actually, I would like to mention, if you have a defender from Burnley, I think this is a good week to start them. I'm not saying sign a defender from Burnley, but if you have him in your team, maybe give them a start. Don't keep them on bench. I think Burnley might have a good chance of keeping a clean sheet. So going back to the captains, it's Romelu Lukaku again. And last week, I think someone in the comments mentioned why you don't have Mkhitaryan or Pogba as your captain, even though you recommend them signing them as in your midfield. Now here's how it works for me. Having a captain that scores a goal is very important. Your captain must score good points. That is the way you get higher up in the rankings. If your captain fails, you're going to drop in rankings. That's a simple rule. Now Mkhitaryan and Pogba are good players, but they are like the security you have to push you further up, but not for captains. There is a possibility they'll play really well, they'll have a great game, they'll be the man of the match, but in terms of FPL, they'll have 2 points or 3 points. Because in FPL, you need to do things, assist or score. That's how you get points. Now, Mkhitaryan and Pogba are great players, but when it comes to scoring goals, I think Lukaku has a better chance. So he missed a penalty last week. That doesn't mean he has lost the ability of scoring goals. Be smart about it and, you know, pick him. have him as an option. Christian Eriksen against Everton is another option you might want to consider. I am not going to say Harry Kane because it's too risky, and I'm not going to say Harry Kane because Eriksen has been playing really well and he's getting close to scoring or assisting more often than any other player from Tottenham. Dele Alli is an option. If you don't have Eriksen, you can go with Ali. If you don't have Eriksen and Ali, well, first of all, you should have one of those two. If you don't, would you consider having Harry Kane as captain? You have to be very brave. But if you do and he scores, trust me, your rankings will push up really, really high. So you can take that as an option. The third player is going to be a bit of a gamble. Like I said, Arsenal at this stage, they are broken and they're playing Bournemouth at home. And I've got a feeling the way Bournemouth play, like I said, is going to get chances. And he doesn't miss many. So I think he's a player I didn't mention while discussing transfers, but I've got a feeling that he'll start against Bournemouth and he'll get some points. If you have him in your team, consider him for the captain pick. So that is all for this week. Let's hope we get higher up in the rankings. See you next week and good luck. Thank you for watching.